Let's Talk Month to just talk to our fathers, right? We get a lot of opportunity to talk to our parents, our caregivers, our mentors, our counselors, a whole bunch of youth serving professionals. But we forget sometimes that these youth serving professionals have families of their own, right? And so Let's Talk Month takes place every October, and it gives parents an opportunity to talk to their youth about a lot of different topics, including sex, including their mental health. Just all types of different techniques are shared in having those hard conversations, or what some may deem as hard, right? And so we want to provide you all with the tools and the resources that you all need. And with that, that means we have to bring some special guests. All right, we have to bring the special guests. So once again, I would just like to personally welcome you all to Let's Talk Month, and I'm not gonna hold it up. I know we are also streaming on YouTube and Facebook. So to all of my viewers out there, hello, hello, hello. We are going to be trying to do our best with looking at the chat. So if there is anything that you all want to say, please put it in the chat box, and let's just practice real quick, right? Because I have like a minute or two left, according to this run of show. Let's practice now. If someone says something good, let me see you all react with the clapping emoji. Let me see if you all know how to use Zoom. Let's just see what's going on tonight. Ah, okay, okay. We got a few. We got a few. Okay. Oh, how you do that? That was a lot. Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right. So, just to make sure that we know how to use the chat, I want everybody to let me know, what county are you joining us from tonight? Where are you joining us? Georgia Campaign for Adolescent Power and Potential. We are a statewide organization that work directly, like I said, with youth as well as youth serving professionals. We work with schools to provide them with the tools and the resources that they need to achieve optimal health. All right. And we do that through our programs and webinars such as this. All right. So without further ado, I see the counties. Cobb's in the building. Clayton County. Hello, hello. DeKalb, Fulton, Dawson County tonight. Y'all, we are everywhere. And I haven't even looked at YouTube yet. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and pass it to the host tonight. We have the one and only Miss Mariah joining us tonight, and we also have Mr. D. Lareg. So I'll let them introduce themselves and continue. But thank you all so much for joining us, and we're going to go ahead and get started.
Thank you so much, JP, for that wonderful introduction. Good evening, everyone. Like you said, my name is Mariah J. I am a training and technical assistance coordinator with the community-based initiative side of GCAP. We are so excited to have you here today, and I'm going to pass it on to my colleague, D. Lareg.
Can y'all hear me now? Hear me now. All right, my name is Dylan Regley. I'm the other training and technical assistant coordinator at GCAP. We are excited to have you all here this evening. Happy to see so many people in here today, and we're ready to get started. So just quickly, we are want to introduce our panelists, and so we're going to start first with David Manuel.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm glad to be on this call, and I'm excited for what you guys are doing with GCAP. My name is David Manuel, and I'm the founder of I Am a Father. We do a big 5K around Father's Day weekend every June. We mentor, we support, and we pour into the community about health and wellness, strengthening family, as well as organ donor awareness.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for being here. And next up is Dr. Charles Daniels.
How y'all doing, everybody? Dr. Charles Daniels. Glad to be here. Founder and Chief Executive Officer of Fathers Uplift Incorporated, the country's first outpatient mental health and substance use treatment facility for fathers and their families, where we assist them in overcoming barriers that prevent them from being engaged in their kids' lives. I'm glad to be with you tonight.
Awesome. Thank you for being here. And last and not least, Sanchez Barnes. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Santes Barnes. I'm a senior from Morrow High School, and I'm here representing YML or the E-Band project. It's basically where a group of kids like myself or people who look just like me, the young Black community, we come together and we talk about how can we be a force of good in our community, and how can we push that agenda to other people. I'm glad to be here, and I can't wait to talk.
Absolutely. Hey, Santes, tell them one more time. Tell them one more time what YML means.
It means young men lead. So anywhere from anywhere from middle school, no, freshman year of high school, really,
Mhm.
to 30s, 40s, anything. As long as you're there putting a good footprint in your community, you could be a part of it.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. And so, quickly, what we are going to do, Mariah and I have some questions for this evening. Again, as you hear, Mr. Manuel talk or Dr. Daniels or even Santes give their answers as we give these questions today. Please put something in the chat. Respond to us. JP is there to answer anything quickly in the chat. You will have time for questions and answers towards the end. But I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and get this thing started. Mariah, take it away.
Absolutely. So, first question, and this is going to go to David and Dr. Daniels. What does being emotionally present as a father mean to you?
Wow, I'm the first one to lead this off. Thank you, Mariah. I think when you use the term emotionally present, it's really about being fully attentive. It's about number one, listening to your children, engaging with them, let them know that it is a safe space and a safe place for them to communicate. When you're emotionally present, you're really there to really pay attention and be a resource, a guidance, but really give an opportunity for your children to speak openly without any judgment, but make them feel comfortable that they feel good about talking to you. Because if they talk to their parents, a lot of things to be prevented if they have an open relationship with their parent.
Great question. Great question. And thank you, David, for that response. For me, emotional presence really comes down to us being present physically, but also emotionally present means for me and in the work that I do with fathers is to make sure that we are present and undefined by what others' expectations of the father we should be, undefined by our past. We make our own decisions in that moment. And that impacts parenting when you have a clear idea of the father that you want to be, the definition of the man that you've created, not what society told you to do. For me, that's very important of emotional presence and emotional maturity. When you're stuck in the past and you're defined by all those other things, it really creates a mess in your parenting journey. So undefined, undeterred by past experiences and what people think you should be as a dad.
Awesome. Great questions. Great answers. Great answers. Um, just to ask both of you this other question. So, since we're talking about being emotionally present, so growing up, what messages did you receive about expressing emotion, and how has that shaped the way you choose to express your emotions?
Wow. So when I was growing up, to be honest with you, I didn't receive any guidance when it comes to expressing my emotions. I was raised by a single mom who had to work at times two jobs to make sure that I had everything that I needed. But in terms of really expressing yourself and being in control of your emotions, I didn't learn it until I got into high school and I went to a performing arts school. So I was an artist, a visual artist, but I passed by the
Mhm.
drama department and I sat in on one of their coaching sessions. and it was talking about expressing yourself and being in control of your emotions. And so listening to that, it was almost like a master class for me because it allowed me to say, let me pause for 3 seconds in terms of how I'm going to express myself. And I operate with the mindset of anticipating to avoid. And so I've kind of adopted that method in terms of not overreacting or underreacting, but really pacing myself so that my reaction won't lead to some bad consequences.
Got you. Got you. Great
Yeah.
answer. Great
Yeah.
answer.
I love that. I love that. Also grew up in a household headed by a hardworking mom who did the best that she could, and for me specifically, what I learned about emotions, if I'm going to be fully transparent, came through the music and television, right? I
Mm,
also played sports. I learned that you had to be tough. You can't cry. Many men in my life told me, you are the man, you hold the brunt responsibility of your household. Also, you are not to show any tears. You are to be tough. You need to be a man, strong, right? The burden of everything falls on you. That's the message that I got as it relates to emotions. Now, when I got to high school, I learned how to speak Spanish and all other types of languages, but no one really taught me how to speak emotion. I believe emotion is a
Hmm.
language, right?
mm,
You have to know how to talk emotion, how to communicate your sadness, communicate your anger in constructive ways. I didn't learn that till I got older.
mm,
So for me, if I'm going to be fully transparent, emotions for me, rap music, TV, right?
mm.
The thugs, I had to be one of my friends, hey, I had to be tough. That's the only thing that I knew about that. But then I realized
Hmm.
as a man, and when I got older, it's okay to cry. It's okay to show how emotional you are. It's okay to tell someone that you're sad. You won't be judged. And if you are judged, who cares? You feel better when you let people know the true feelings that you have. So that's kind of my experience with emotions.
Can I add something to what Dr. Charles said? Because he mentioned something
Hmm.
about, he learned through music, he learned through TV, and kind of the same for me. I learned really how to be a father watching Good Times and watching The Cosby Show. Both of those examples of fathers really shaped how I was going to be a father when I got that chance. In Good Times, James Evans was a tough father. He didn't have a lot of money, but you knew he was the man of the house. But Heathcliff Huxtable, and I'm saying Heathcliff the character, he showed you how to be open and honest
Hmm.
and create a safe space so your children feel very comfortable talking to you. And so I took both of those ideas, and when I got a chance to I couldn't wait to be a father. It was almost like playing double dutch. I couldn't wait to jump in to being a father because of what I had learned from TV. So yeah, I agree with Dr. Charles on that. The influences is impactful.
So let me ask you both. So what was the what was the impact of one maybe early on, and I'll start with Dr. Daniels. So what was the impact of the misinformation that you learned about emotions on your early
Well,
part of your life? And
yeah.
then David, what was like you said in high school, you saw that drama class, it gave you some insight onto what you were feeling. So and then the same question, what was that impact for you? Because it brought some clarity. But Dr. Dennis, if you can go first, like what was that impact for you?
Yeah, I think those experiences are not isolated from the trauma that you experience, right? And they define one another. For me specifically, I was growing up in a household without my father, so I was angry, I was depressed, I was mad as hell, I felt worthless. So that music became fuel to the fire,
Hmm.
right? So I'm listening to Pastor Troy, I'm listening to Nuck If You Buck, right? I'm listening to all these artists, and it's fueling my anger, right? So I've kind of
Right.
created my own identity based on the music that I was
Yep.
experiencing, right? It was
Yep.
hard for me to watch Good Times like Mr. Dave because I didn't know what that looked like. I really wanted to, my anger was my identity, right? And that's
Right.
what it became, I would say, a falter in terms of me being able to express my emotions because my language was controlled by the trauma that I experienced. I wasn't controlling my emotions. So I think that's the kind of interesting dynamic with my own personal experience. And I would say the turnaround occurred through therapy and through allowing people to help me, through going to church, whatever your care team is comprised of, the people that pour into you. That's why I learned different ways of communicating emotions, which I'm pretty sure we'll talk about that later. But again, it fueled it. It was a negative impact based on my trauma.
Got you. Thank you, David.
And you had a question for me too. Was it the same question?
Yeah,
Or-
just the same question because your past were are it seemed different, but I think we a lot of times we don't get a chance to talk about the impact of not having the emotions because to me anger you're having too much of something, and
Right.
if we're depressed we're not having enough of
Right.
the emotion of what's going on. So tell me how you developing that at a young age in high school, how did that impact your life of learning how to balance the two emotions or
So
balance
first,
emotions for you?
So first of all, Dr. Charles, I was listening to Nuck If You Buck before we got on the Zoom, so I understand how to feel hyped about that. But to answer your question, for me, it was really paying attention to what the community was saying. When I was growing up, I kept hearing the term deadbeat dad. A dad is not involved in the life of a child, and there was many reasons for that. It might have been that they didn't have the best relationship with the mother, and they kind of went their separate ways, and they were uninvolved. I kept hearing all these terms, but then as I got older, I started paying attention to, some of the problem was that a lot of men shut down when they felt like they wasn't going to be heard or life wasn't going to be fair with them or the justice system was not going to look in their favor, that they shut down because they didn't have the communication skills that was brought up in a childhood that sometimes you can get in a two-parent household. And so for me, I had to live vicariously through what I saw that was right, but also what I experienced that was a shutdown and try to balance the two. At the end of the day, you know, Dr. Charles meant that, he got help. He got seek professional help. At some point, we have to learn how to balance, and balance is the key because at the end of the day, life is going to keep lifing. And if you're not equipped with some sort of balance and some sort of village that is around you and near to you to bounce off, to think, get in your car, listen to Nuck If You Buck, express yourself, go walk to Stone Mountain, get to the top of the mountain and scream to the top of your lungs, whatever brings you this level of understanding. I mean, that's how you move forward.
Thank you so much for answering those beautiful questions. Before we get to emotional vulnerability, I do want to hear from our young person tonight. Santes, if you could kind of answer that same question, you know, you're currently going through high school. What messages are you currently receiving when it comes to expressing your emotions, and how is that shaping how you're choosing to live your life and express your emotions right now?
Um, for me, as a kid, I heard more so of what Mr. Daniels and Mr. David heard, like, boys aren't supposed to cry, you're supposed to be tough on the outside. I heard more so a lot of that. So growing up, I chose to more so become quiet. Like whenever there's something wrong with me, I choose to go silent, try to remove myself from the picture and get some alone time. But as I've grown, I've tried to come out of that shell because I've seen like more people seem like okay with the idea of like guys being able to like show hurt. So I'm trying to like step out of that shell a little bit.
Thank you so much. That is such a great point. And as you can see, through generations, we're still seeing some of the same patterns within our communities, right? We have multiple generations on the call right now, and different upbringings and elements are still the same. And so as we try to break some of those chains and how we view vulnerability and emotions, I'm curious to know some more thoughts as we dive deeper through these questions. So the next question, Dr. Daniels, how do you balance strength with vulnerability when talking to your children?
Wow, that's a great question. One thing that I find is hard for men is to actually ask for help and to get the assistance that they need. We like to try to speed through the things that feel bad and feel icky, that we don't want to deal with. And then that becomes, it counters the quality of a person that you want to be for your children and the people around you, right? So for me, I think balance is when it comes to balance, you have to be able to embrace what you're feeling. Don't try to play it off as if you're not feeling it. I think when that happens, right, it leads to the depression, it leads to the anxiety, it also leads to suicidal thoughts. And we know that suicide is on the rise. When we hold stuff in, it builds up until it explodes, right? So for me, balance is all about making sure that you have people to help you and that you can trust. Now, the thing about balance is to really understand that it doesn't mean that you talk to your girlfriend or your friends about your problem all the time because they're not your therapist. They can't help you all the time. Balance is really understanding who those people are in your village that you can call on when you need to, and you use them. And you don't be ashamed to use them. That's the only way that you can be present for your children fully when you tap into your network. Now, I've seen people try to do it by themselves, but let me tell you, those people that try to do it by themselves will end up causing more harm than positivity, right? No one does it by themselves. So I definitely want to just keep that in mind as we think about balance. Use your support system, your care team.
Thank you. That's great. It kind of goes to the fact of the idea, it takes a village to raise a child,
Mhm.
like that concept somehow has gotten lost throughout our community. And if we start to bring that back, we will see a change in our young people as they're trying to navigate this very different world. Um, David, same question, how do you balance strength and vulnerability when talking to your children?
Well, I think it boils down to consistency. You always hear these comparisons of a mother or a father. What's the role? I think for a father, they need to set the tone, and it doesn't matter what age the child is. It doesn't matter if it's a male or female. It's different conversations with both as they get older. But I think being consistent, letting your children know whether it's a girl or a boy, let them know that you will stand in the gap for them for any situation. A lot of times, some fathers and some mothers are we have a lot of young people having kids and they don't quite have the parenting skills to actually have kids or manage kids or raise kids. And a lot of time it takes that village to come in. It takes sometimes that big mama, which now big mama might be 37. She's not 67 no more. So the dynamics have changed. But if you're consistent with how you raise and how you impact, that's going to be the difference. A lot of times, fathers feel like if they're not as involved, they show up with gifts and buying. What a child need is for you to be there. Forget the gifts. That's icing it on the cake. They just need to look up and know that there's a consistent, solid man in my life. And I've seen it with daughters. Daughters just want to look back and say, that's my hero, that's my father. You don't even have to be an outstanding father. Just be a consistent, good father, and that's gonna set the tone for your children as they move and develop.
Absolutely. Great questions, gentlemen. Great questions. So this next question is really for everyone. So can you share a moment when being open or vulnerable deepen your relationship with your child, Santez, with your parent? So again, can you share a moment when being open or vulnerable with vulnerable and deepen your relationship with your child or your parent? And anyone can start.
Okay, Sante, you want to start first?
I can go ahead and go. So for me, it would be more so with my mom, because my mom, she had me when she was rather young. So we kind of, rather than having that son and mother dynamic, we more so have like a brother and sister dynamic sometimes. But we only got like that because of like me opening up with her. Like I remember back in middle school, before I got to high school, I would, I mean, I trust my mom, but I wouldn't tell her nothing going on in my personal life. Like if there was something bad happening, like if I was getting bullied, like I'm gonna handle that on my own. But my mom has showed me like time and time again that like she's there for me and like if there's anything I need, like she'll come through with it no matter what. So it's gotten me more open.
I think
Awesome.
for me, and I'm glad you shared that because we always need to hear the perspective of the young people. So since I think I'm the senior statesman, I'm probably the oldest person on the panel. For me, it happened actually 11 years ago to this day. This day is a very special day for me because this is the day that I received a life-saving liver transplant. Um, and on this day, I remember being in the hospital, talking to both my sons, apologizing to them that I didn't know I was going to get dealt this hand, and I'm not going to be able to see you graduate from college. I'm not going to see you get married because I'm the doctors has given me about 3 days to live. And I had this conversation with them, and we really opened up. And for the first time, I saw my two boys frightened, and I had been in their life their whole life. I coached them in Little League football, everything, I spent all my time raising my boys. But when I saw the fear in their eyes, it made me feel like I hadn't done enough to prepare them because that's the role of a parent. You prepare your kids for life without you. And you got to get them set, ready, financially set, mature, and that kind of thing. And when I talked to them, and I saw the fear in their eyes, I knew that I had work to do. And I'm so glad that I got that transplant because these last 11 years, it has been just nonstop making sure that they're ready, making sound decisions about purchasing real estate, meeting young ladies, taking it to the next level. All those things that I can do now because God gave me a second chance to do it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Wow, I mean, those just some great examples, and thank you all for sharing that. For me, you know, I definitely wanted my son to learn how important it was to embrace his tears. So, every time he cried as he was growing up, I would say, "Hey, he's now 11 years old." I say, "Hey, it's okay to cry. Men cry. It's okay to show that emotion, right? So when you need to cry, let it out. Daddy won't judge you." And I used to tell him that all the time. So one day. I found myself crying because my mother is currently battling stage 4 cancer. And my son saw me, and his response was, "Daddy, it's okay to cry." And then I realized the lesson that I poured into him for the last few years, was something that he shared with me in that very vulnerable moment when I needed the most. And I learned something else is that, we got to parent by showing. I'm a firm believer, just like I'm a Christian, and I believe that in order to be a good Christian, you got to show people God. Don't just Bible thump. You don't throw the Bible on them, right? You show people God. So my parenting journey and how I think about fathering is the same. I show my son what it means to say, "Hey, I love you, son," what it means to cry, what tears mean, because I believe that's the best example for fathering is to be that example that you want your children to follow. Don't tell them what to do alone and not do it yourself. Don't be a contradiction.
Mhm.
Tell them, but show them more than you tell them, and they'll follow. And he did just that when I needed the most. So
Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you, gentlemen.
thank you.
I do want to just take a brief moment to acknowledge and thank all the panelists for being vulnerable in this space and being willing to share those personal stories with the world, and inviting us into those very precious moments of your life. I really appreciate that vulnerability here and now. So the next question, is for you, Santez, specifically. What helps you feel safe, um, opening up to your parents about something difficult?
For me, it's knowing that they've been in my shoes before, like being able to be related back to like if I need some advice on how to pay my way through something, like I can go to my mom because more than likely she's been through that situation 100 times more than I have, and so she could give me the best decision. And it's like even if that's not what I want to hear at the time, like when I go and make the opposite decision, I look back and I'm like, "Nah, I probably should have listened to my mom because she had the right idea."
Thank you. And you have so much life left, and as you continue to learn and still experience more experiences and have more conversations with your mom. I love that you have such a strong foundation now and you're already comfortable being vulnerable and being willing to talk to her and even reflecting. So many young people don't start reflecting until they're older. And so that skill in itself will help you go such a long way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So this next question i- is again, it's really for Santes, but I truly believe it's really for all our panelists. But what do you wish your father understood or male figure understood about your emotional needs? So Santes, I'm gonna start with you first. So again, what do you wish your father or male figures understood about your emotional needs?
So I would say that a little goes a long way because for me, like I got like I'm a mama's boy through and through. Because for me, it was like my dad, he wasn't here. My stepdad, I mean, he was here and wasn't around, but it was kind of like favoritism towards my little sister. So it was kind of like I'd always end up going back to my mom if I ever needed something. And I would see like on holidays and stuff, like my stepdad, he'd shower my mom and my little sister and gifts and everything like that. And I get like, the bare minimum or something like that. And like not even like I love you or something like that. You know what I mean? So I wish you
Mhm.
understand that, a little goes a long way. And I take anything.
Gotcha. Thank you. Thank you for being honest. Dr. Daniels, same question. What do you wish your father or male figure understood about your emotional needs?
Wow, that's a great question. I had a conversation with my father years ago. He's not in my life, and I, expressed, what was going on, hey, how I needed him there, how I felt. I even said I forgave him, and he
Mhm.
said to me in response, I believe that he felt offended by me simply stating that I forgave him. His response was this. He said, uh, "What you talking about? I'm not one of those buster people that you work with. I brought you school clothes." His definition of a man and being a father for him was I did my job as a man. I purchased school clothes for my son when he needed them. I did my job. What I would want fathers to know in any man, my father and any man, that you are more than what you purchase for your children. Your value cannot be quantified by the amount of gifts, the rewards, the house with the white picket fence. My son taught me this a long time ago. I made him a peanut butter jelly sandwich. He told me I was the best father in the world because I could make a great peanut butter jelly sandwich. So you're the best father in the world. I was like, wow. So I only made a peanut butter jelly sandwich. Anybody can do that. But what he was saying was, Dad, I love you because you're here for me and your time matters to me. Right? That's what he was saying in his kid language. So for me, I had to really understand, hey, shift away slowly. I mean, society tells you got to get all this stuff to be successful, but your kids are telling you, I just want you here, right?
Mhm,
And I had to
mhm,
understand that time is valuable, as Mr. David said earlier, but also my time is valuable, but the small things really matter to our children, and we have to honor the small things that you can easily overlook when you're caught up in a capitalistic society that only
Mhm.
rewards success, money, girls, football, sports, and beer and alcohol, right? That's not your children. Your children are not what society values, right? They just want you, homeless or millionaire. They want you.
Absolutely. Thank you. David.
And I think for me, I grew up, I didn't grow up with resentment for my father, even though he wasn't in my life, but I did grow up with disappointment for him. My parents got divorced when I was 4 years old, and I was the youngest. And my middle brother uh, had just passed away with leukemia. And then 6 months later, my father ended up leaving. And so I was disappointed because I felt at a very hard time for the family. He deserted us. He deserted my mom while she was in another area now because a parent never gets over losing a child. And so I had to grow up with that stress of seeing my mom having to work two jobs and that kind of thing when my father could have been there. And I remember being at a basketball game and I was small, so I never was a starter. But finally, when we was up by 20 points, the coach put me in and I scored my first bucket and everybody was cheering. And I looked in the audience, but I didn't see my father. And then when it was time to go home, because my mom had to work late, I rode with another kid and his father. And I sat in that back seat and I was just thinking, like, wow, if my father was there, he would have been so proud of me. And I used that as my motivation. So, it wasn't that I was resenting him or anything like that. It's just that I was disappointed that he didn't stand in the gap when it was needed. And I wanted to make sure that when I got that opportunity to be a father, I would check all those boxes. So, he didn't teach me anything directly, but indirectly, he taught me a lot in terms of how to be a man, not to make excuses for not having a father. What are you doing at
Mhm.
this point in your life? And I think a lot of us, we grow up without a father and we use that as an excuse. But at
Mhm.
some point, those excuses got to go away. You got to man up or you got to position yourself to say, I'm going to move forward because I got this.
Absolutely. And great answers, gentlemen. And as I read this question, I just quickly, I grew up like all of you gentlemen here, that's on the call. Single parent mom. I have an older brother. Different dad, same mom. And my dad left when I was 3, and I didn't see him again until I was 18, and there was no communication in between. And the when I turned 18, he wanted to see me. And I remember driving in that car with him, and he said to me, he said, "Listen, I'm sorry for not being there. Can you forgive me?" And I told him, I said, "I forgive you, but I won't forget." But that small little piece of forgiveness that I gave him, or that we did, it literally changed my life. I learned to love my dad from 18 until the day he died. And the thing that was glaring for me was that I I was glad that he wasn't there, because he wouldn't have been able to teach me the things that I felt like I was supposed to know, because he didn't know his dad. So my father died without even knowing who his dad was.
Mm.
So, from that, and I say that not as for sadness, but as what all of you are saying, that you develop and you learn the emotional balance, or not, being a single parent, or being a child of a single parent, that you learned to be better men than what you were shown. And that comes down to choices and the decisions that we make along the way. I didn't want to make it about me, it's about y'all, but I just wanted to put that piece in there, because Santez, I hear your story, and we are very similar. I know I'm like 40, 49, and you like 17, 18, but the story is very similar. And I encourage you, brother, you're not out here by yourself. Keep fighting, keep going,
Mm.
and you're gonna be, and you are already great, man. Okay. So
Thank you.
next
Thank
question.
you. I
My bad.
appreciate that.
Absolutely. My bad. Next question.
No, you're fine, D. We're still doing good. We're doing great on time and
Cool.
everything. So David mentioned something about standing in the gap, and so to
Hmm.
bridge the gap that we're seeing in our households, what are some simple everyday ways to create a space for honest conversations? And this question can go to anyone.
For me, it's all back to relation. Like I said, my stepdad, like I know I said he didn't like, really talk to me or really show much love to me in like gift ways, but when it came to like regular conversations, he tried to relate to me a lot. Like when it came to me growing my hair out when I was going into high school, he was like, "Oh yeah, I grew my hair out when I was young too. I had it all the way down to my back," and he was making all these comparisons. When I was a freshman doing football, he was like, "Oh yeah, yeah, I was a running back in football. I was doing my thing out there." So he always tried to make relations back to what I was doing back with his life. And it when it came to getting conversations out of me, I will say it worked because I did feel more open to talk to him about what was going on and if I needed help with anything.
And that's great to hear, especially your perspective. I would say, when you're in a household and there's a father in that household, that father is the head, not the tail. And that father needs to come into that family with a plan. Write it down, make it plain. We've heard that, all our life. But that plan needs to be inclusive of everyone that's involved. Everyone is a stakeholder. So when you're sitting down and having dinner, it might be every night or it might be once a week, but whenever you're sitting down and you can break bread, that's an opportunity to kind of talk about the plan, evaluate the plan together, not like it's a dictatorship, because the young people, the children in your family, they got a lot to say. They just need a space to be heard. And that's the role of a parent to say, what do you guys want to see? The times are changing, and our youth are more equipped to handle this change than the parents. They know everything about the new devices, the new phones, how to do all this stuff. If you got your own business, you need to make sure you employ your kids because they're going to help your business thrive. But that sit down communication is going to be a key. And if a man is in that household, he needs to lead that.
Wow. Wow. Y'all get me fired up. And Suntez, I mean, brother, you're brilliant. Just so glad to be and privileged and honored to
Yeah.
be on the same panel with you, man. So thank you just for being you and keep up the great work. And, and one thing I just want to kind of piggyback off of what Suntez was saying that I think his stepfather is doing, one thing that I tell my son, I've been telling him for years, he can say whatever he want to say. I say, there's nothing that you can say or do to make me love you any less. I think that's kind of like the foundational words that sets the stage for what Sante's stepfather is doing. So when you want to talk about doing your hair, you want to talk about going somewhere, you want to wear what you want to wear, you want to talk about trying to date different types of people, right? There's nothing that you can say, do. There's no one that you can love to make me love you any less. And I think when we let our kids know that, right, and we show them, because after that, you got to put the action behind your words. You can't be like, hey, well, Dad, you told me this, but you're judging me for this. Nah, the actions have to follow, right? You got to be compassionate, but also consistent with setting that foundation. But for me, that's the foundation. I say it to my son every time. Son, there's nothing you can do or say to make me love you any less, right? If you want to talk about it, we can, but I'm not judging you. And I'm consistent with it. So there's one, I would say, tip that I use in my personal life to set the stage for open and honest conversations.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, we're gonna answer. We got two more questions left. Let's go ahead and do this question. Um, what's one message you want fathers to take away about emotional connection? So, we got a lot of fathers on here tonight. So what is one message you want fathers to take away about emotional connection?
I would say be available. Be available. Don't let life get in the way of your responsibility. The best job in the world, in my opinion, is to be a parent. You have the opportunity to shape the life of someone. I was an educator in the Atlanta public school system. I had 30 kids in my classroom, and I looked at that as an opportunity for me to pour into them. They were in the second grade, so that's for me, that was the perfect age to really get them to influence them. It's an opportunity because you don't know who's going to be the next president or who's going to be the person who cures cancer. Because just like Dr. Charles, my mom died with stage 4 cancer as well. And so you have the opportunity to stand in that gap to do everything that you can. And so I would say, that's the message to these fathers. Um, Own it, own what a father is. It's the head, not the tail. Own it with getting a plan and be brave enough to ask for help along the way. That's the biggest thing. We don't know everything because many of us was raised without a father. So we're learning as we go, but to be open and honest, to be there, to throw a splash of humor in the life because life is going to life. And
Yep.
if you can't laugh about some things with your family, you're not creating a safe space for them to share everything. You know,
Yep.
who they might bring home will be an issue to them. And the worst thing you can do for a kid is to make them feel unsafe at home where they got to keep things in or hide things. They're
Yep.
gonna grow up being trouble if you don't set that tone as a parent and as a father.
Mm.
Absolutely. Thank you for that.
I love that, David. Wow, you said a mouthful. I agree with everything David said. I think, I think I just want to reinforce the fact, man, that, we all are going through it. Don't compare yourself to other dads. No one got it all together and no one is perfect. We all have our battles. And just like we all can overcome our battles, you can too, right?
Mhm.
So acknowledge the battle, get the help, and be the father that you want to be, not the father that you're looking at or the father that you are thinking you're not, right? You're the exact father that you need to be for the people that you're blessed to father, right? So keep that in mind in your journey. I think we get caught up in comparing yourself, man. It becomes a downhill battle, right? You are the greatest father in the world because you say you are. So be that father, despite the mistakes you made. One mistake doesn't make you a bad father. You're going to make your mistakes, embrace it, get back up, and try again.
Mm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, absolutely. Mariah?
Yeah, so GCAP is also, the Georgia Campaign for Adolescent Power and Potential. It is a statewide adolescent health organization. So I definitely do want to ask a health related question before we end tonight. What advice would you give to fathers who want to discuss sexual health and boundaries but aren't sure where or how to start?
David, you know that one. My son ain't at age yet.
Wait a minute,
he he might
how old
he
is your
might
son?
be at 11. I need a lot. I got a lot to learn myself. So you got to bless us, brother.
So my sons are 28. Well, he'll be 29 in a couple of weeks, and 31. And that's an interesting question because you know, I was in the household with them all through them growing up. And I remember my wife had a problem with me because she planned the first 3 years of their birthday parties, and I planned the fourth year. And I wanted to throw them a birthday party at Hooters because I wanted them to visually see what daddy wanted them to see at 4 years old. And the aunts and the grandmothers was like, really? You really? And I was like, no, the girls are bringing out balloons. They're great. Yeah, they're in short shorts, um, but we always talked about their dating preference and girls and that kind of thing. And I made it a point to let them know to always feel comfortable with me about talking about anything. And although as a father, I had a preference of who they dated, I never overly expressed that. And so when they went off to college or whatever like that, they could have came home with Sheila or they could have came home with Steve. Long as they got a good credit score, I was cool with it. And so that was the humor part in it too, to make sure that they felt comfortable. Now they're both in serious relationships, and I think marriage might be a year away, and they've met some beautiful, smart, caring women that can help them thrive to go to the next level. But in terms of sexual encounters or that kind of thing, you know what you tell your boys, protect yourself at all times. Be prepared. Don't get caught up in the moment. Don't let the little head rule the big head. All these things, we share with them. And the biggest part of what we share or what we don't share with them is prayer. When you're raising sons, you know that when they leave that house, they're open for anything, police, society, or whatever. And so prayer has been the constant thing in my life to make sure that I raise my boys under a protection, whether it's sex, whether it's conversation, whether it's bullying, all those things. Prayer had to be part of the equation.
Absolutely. And I just want to chime in real quick. I know we got to go, but I have an older daughter. She just turned 29, and one of the crazy things we were talking about was the fact that, back in the day when she was in middle school, I was doing abstinence only education. And she was like, I remember you taking me into the classroom and talking about these various topics. And so, I think it just comes down to, being comfortable with having those uncomfortable conversations. So, if you have little kids, you know, let them know what consent is. Not saying we or pocketbook or anything like that. Say penis and vagina. Let them know what the information is. As they get older, I agree. I agree with David. I don't know about the Hooters, but I agree with the fact of having those open and honest conversations with them about condoms and about this sex and porn and everything, because even though they might be uncomfortable, they're getting the information from you, because as parents, as fathers, we're the first line of defense, to helping them to improve and to get through this. So listen, gentlemen, I thank you. We may have some questions in the chat. JP, do we have any questions in the chat for our panelists tonight?
Yes, we do. And I
Awesome.
would just like to say very briefly, this has been an awesome conversation. We've been getting comments throughout the chat, and I'm getting text messages and all, y'all. So awesome, awesome discussion tonight. The first question that we want to ask from the chat, if you all are comfortable with answering, includes: what are your thoughts on raising kids who relate as being non-binary?
Well, I kind of touched on that a little bit in my last comment, and so I'm going to pass it over to the other experts.
Yeah, I would say it's going to be very important for that parent to take into consideration their preconceived notions on sex, gender, check that first so they can be present for that child. I think that's very important. Start with self. And I think there's other things you can do, but for me, I think that's the most important, because specifically for non-binary children, you can create more damage if you're not careful on your own perceptions and how you can project those things in a negative way. So I think you want to really start with self for raising binary children. And I'll leave it there, and I can share more information as well.
Most definitely. Thank you all for your responses. And the next question that we had in the chat is: what would you like to see in movies and TV about fatherhood and even teenage pregnancy? And this is for all of our panelists. So once again, what would you like to see in movies and TV about fatherhood and even teenage pregnancy? What would y'all like to see?
I can start. For me, when it comes to teenage pregnancy, I like to see like how fast word spreads, because it's happened for us in my high school. Like my freshman year, there was a girl, or there were two girls actually. One gave birth, one had started giving birth in our bathroom on our third floor, and the other started giving, there was another incident where she started giving birth in the stairwell. And like when I say like word got around our school like wildfire, and it was like people just kept talking and talking about it for months. Like it was just like the president had got shot or something. Like I understand it was like a big deal, but like if it was your situation, you wouldn't want someone constantly talking and bantering about what kind of decisions you made. So I like to see something like that in movies.
Awesome.
What I would like to see, and thank you for sharing that, because that's a real issue
Yeah.
and we see it every day. I think what I would like to see, in some of the movies that are shown, we don't pay attention to the credits. Once the movie's over, whether we're in a movie theater or watching it at home, we take a break, we go get food or whatever while the credits are rolling. We need to use the before time, because we end up leaving during the credits, but before the movie start, we need to have information. And it doesn't need to be real wordy. Everybody has a smartphone now, so a QR code that could direct people, to say, hey, this movie's about this, but here's some resources for you before you watch this movie. Use your phone and do this. And it might be, let's say a very popular, well-known celebrity come in right before a movie. And that doesn't mean they have to even be in that movie. But, if you got a Denzel that's going to just do a 30-second before movie saying, hey, you about to watch this, but remember, there are resources out here. Click below my face and there's your resource. I think that would help a lot for
Yeah.
movies, because the movie's going to be made because everybody want to be wowed by TV. And it's almost like it needs to be must-see TV. They got to see the guns. They got to see the gangster. But at least put that information before the movie start so that the resources will be available that you can look at after the movie's over.
Yeah.
Awesome. Dr.
You want
Dan?
to?
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
Sure, sure,
Yeah,
sure.
about a minute. Yes, sir.
Yeah. I think, we like to glorify fathers like me and David, fathers that are there every day, Father's Day. We glorify those fathers, but we stump on the ones that we don't see who are absent for various reasons. I think movies need to do a better job of portraying the experiences of fathers that are fighting to be in their kids' lives on a more consistent basis. Like those fathers who have been impacted by mass deportation, impacted by incarceration, impacted by heart disease. Maybe they are on a waiting list for a transplant, impacted because they've been sent overseas or because they work all the time, right? I think we need to tell more a holistic story of fatherhood to show the struggles, but also those stories of the dads that are fighting to be like me and David, those dads who see their kids every day, right? And all those other dads. We glorify those dads. Hey, there's no absent fathers. Well, hey, if there's no fathers, there's no one in the picture. What happens to systemic inequities? What happens to racism? That doesn't exist, right? What happens to oppression? It doesn't exist. Fathers are fighting to be dads like me and David who are there every day, right? And we need to show that story of those fights. And we don't show those in the media, not as much as we need to show them.
And let me add something quick to that because you hit the nail on the head. I was doing a program in Detroit, and it was about people that are incarcerated that got less than 2 years. So they're going to get ready to get out and have a second chance on life. And so I went to talk to them. And some of these were the toughest guys you'll see, tatted up in the face, been lifting weights, look like all their life. And when I sat down to talk to them, many of them broke down and said, hey, when I get out, I just want to be in my child's life. I just want to sit and do homework with my child. But the mother keeps saying, I got to pay to play. But I just got out of jail, so I can't get a job. But now I can't see my kids. What do I need to do? I don't want to do something that's going to bring me back into this situation. But the only thing I want to do is sit down. So every situation is different. Sometimes the relationship between the man and the woman is so toxic that at the end of the day, the children suffer. We got to get to a place where we have to learn how to address our issues and control our rage and make sure that we're benefiting the children. And because, yeah, seeing some of these tough guys and the only thing they wanted to do was spend time, it was heartbreaking. But, but that's a part of life that we got to overcome.
Well, thank you all so much, gentlemen, for your responses, not just to those questions that were asked in the chat. Awesome questions, by the way, for those of you who asked questions in the chat. We thank you. But also just for the entire panel. You all, we have had a great discussion. I'm super, super grateful for these young men, Mr. David Manuel, Dr. Charles C. Daniels, and YML own, the Young Men Leads own, Evan Project's own, Santez Barnes. We thank you so much for joining us. As you see on your screen, we have our parent toolkit, which you can scan the QR code for that and access topics including mental health, human sexuality, peer pressure, teen dating violence. I mean, the amount of topics we have there is amazing, and it's a free resource. So please use it. And if you all have any questions, please feel free to reach out. And last but not least, we would like to ask you all to please complete our post survey, and I'll go ahead and put the link in the chat for you all to complete that. Let us know how we did, what you enjoyed, what could have been better in your opinion. And thank you all so much. We hope you all have a great night. Thanks again for joining us at the 2025 Let's Talk More Fatherhood Edition. And also Mariah D, thank y'all so much for y'all handled this situation so great, this conversation rather. So thank y'all so much. Y'all have a good night. Be blessed.